Since everyone's voted for it and all the candidates who were for it are in place, it's only a matter of days or weeks before it becomes the law of the state of Missouri. And so we got on this conversation, and so we wanted to get the conservative point of view on all this. Carl Bearden, friend of the show, former Speaker Pro Tem of the Senate. Now he's the executive director of United for Missouri. Carl Bearden, welcome back, Big 550 KTRS.
Thanks for having me, McGraw.
Right to work is what? What is that?
So right to work would allow employees to go to work at a business without being required to join a union to do the same job.
Today, if you work for a business that is union, you must be forced to join that union.
Right, and so there's some confusion about why is that. That people think that's the law, that unions have to cover and negotiate for non-union members, and that's not the case. Unions determined to be the exclusive bargaining representative for all the employees, which means that they have to cover non-members. So then you have to become a member and you get for your fair share payment and so on and so forth. That is not what the law says. The law says that you do not have to bargain. But in Missouri and other forced union states, that is the case. That's the joining.
And so this right-to-work law, once signed and passed and then signed, which looks like it's going to be done here very shortly, would change what? What is this going to change?
So what it changes is that if you're an employer and you like union work, you can still hire union labor to do that work, but you don't have to. You could hire a McGraw Millhaven who has all the qualifications that a union person may have, but doesn't want to join a union. You can hire a McGraw Millhaven, or you can hire a Carl Bearden who is also a union. You can go down to the union hall and hire a union person. You just cannot require them to be a member of the union, and that is the difference in right to work.
Okay, so a builder is using union workers to build a house.
Correct.
He then doesn't have to that builder doesn't have to now use union worker, or does he?
He doesn't have to. He does not have to. But if he's entered into a contract with a union, he would then have to do that. And that's the other thing about today's bargaining and today's right to work bill that's going through is if you have a contract, that doesn't abrogate those contracts. But once that contract expires, that union, that contractor then can determine, I want to hire and contract with union laborers, or I don't want to, or I can do a mixture of both.
But today, before this law is passed, can't that builder say, I would rather, because there are home builders that are union and there are home builders that aren't union.
Correct. That's correct. But if you are a union home builder, you cannot hire somebody because you have an exclusive representative in that contract. So you will not hire anybody who is not union labor if you have a contract with laborers today.
Okay, so let's take a company A that makes widgets, and it's a union company today, and I get hired by this company, and today I'd have to join that union.
Correct.
Tomorrow, once this bill is passed, I don't have to join that union.
That's correct.
And so would I get any of the union benefits as a non-union member in this shop?
There is no requirement for you to get those benefits today. And so that's part of the complaint is, hey, all these non-union members will now be freeloaders because they get the union benefits. And that is not the case at all, because now as a non-union member, you have to negotiate your own terms and your own contracts, which, and I'm sure in your career you've done much of the same thing.
Right.
Every job I've had, I've always had to negotiate my own terms and contracts. Right. And so that's exactly what would have to happen. They do not automatically get those union benefits as a non-union member.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, all unions are different. I was in a radio station that was union, and I still had to negotiate. There was a level, there was a minimum, and then you had to negotiate anything over that. Sure. Whereas KTRS is non-union, but I'm still part of the union.
Right.
But this is a non-union shop. So, so you're saying if you were to go into the shop as non-union, and the shop is making $10 an hour, I could go in and say, give me $12 an hour, and I would negotiate that, however, 12 or 8 or whatever else. I would do that on my own.
Yes.
All right. What is the benefit of the employee to be non-union?
Because they get to decide that. See, they get to decide whether that's a benefit at all, because what we see, for example, in Indiana, just went right to work about 2 or 3 years ago. Indiana, Michigan, and Wisconsin are actually Kentucky went a weekend ago.
Right.
West Virginia went last year or two. But the 3 states that are most like Missouri, Indiana, Michigan, and Wisconsin.
Right.
Indiana went right to work 2 or 3 years ago. They have seen tremendous job growth, and which included 50,000 new member union members during the last 2 or 3 years, even though they're right to work. And so that's the beauty of this whole right to work thing is an employee gets to decide, is it more benefit for me to be a union member? Does a union offer me the best benefit to become a union member, or is it better for me to be non-union? Do I get more benefits? Do I feel like I'm more in control, or what have you? And that employee gets to make that decision.
Is there a one-to-one? I mean, it's hard to say that Indiana's job growth is directly related to right to work, or can you?
So all the economics are always kind of mixed, but what we do know as a rule, and as we look at Bureau of Labor Statistics, as we look at Bureau of Economic Analysis, is that the right-to-work states are seeing higher job growth. They're seeing faster wage increases, growth. So we do know that right-to-work states are seeing those and are attracting more jobs, or they're getting faster wage growth. So can we relate everything to right-to-work? No. You look at Tennessee, they've got actually what I think is the best combination. They have right-to-work and they have no income tax. So there are a lot of different variables that come into that.
So why is it? What is the benefit of the company coming in? What once this bill is passed, right to work, what's the benefit that a company is going to say, hey, Missouri's right to work, that's beneficial for me? Take me into the mind of the CEO who might come here because this law has changed.
Well, they can look at this and they say, okay, what benefit do I have? Because there are some levels that can be union, because maybe they want unions in some areas and they want some areas to be non-union. Today, they would not necessarily have that choice. And so they look at their business model and they look at their whole picture, broad picture.
Right.
And they say, I can go to Mississippi, or I can go to Tennessee, or I can go to any of the 6 states that surround Missouri except for Illinois. Where would I locate if I wanted to be part union and have part non-union? Where would I go? And they would say, what makes that possible? If I can't go to Missouri, I can't go to Illinois because I have to be all union there. And so they can make that decision based on their business model, what works best for me, and how do we best serve our customers.
Are there companies, again, because all of this is, I don't know if I think it's much to do about nothing, quite frankly. I think both sides have screamed and yelled and rant and rave, and I don't know how much it's actually going to change. That's where I honestly believe. But I'm still confused because in radio, there are union radio shops and there are non-union radio shops. So if a radio station, and I know this for all other reasons couldn't do this, but if a radio station wanted to relocate here in St. Louis, they could be union if they chose, or if the House agreed to it, or they could be non-union. So are there businesses, if they come to St. Louis, must be unionized?
So the way that it works is that they could circulate a petition for to become unionized, right? That's the way that it works. And if enough of the members or the workers vote to be union, you would become unionized, whether you want it to be or not.
Right.
And so that's the way that it would work here in Missouri. So you wouldn't get that choice at that point.
Right.
And under right to work, though, you would have that choice. So under right to work, you could not join that union. The rest of your coworkers could join the union. You could choose not to under right to work.
Right. And so the company says, great, the workers unionized, good for you, but I don't have to hire union workers. I can hire anybody I want.
Right, but they can't fire them. See, that's what the right to work law says. You cannot be hired or fired because you belong to or don't belong to a union. So it doesn't just protect people who don't belong to unions. It also protects people who do belong to unions.
How much are you worried that this will pit the non-union worker versus the union worker?
There's a lot. The pitting goes on because there's a lot of, as you said, a lot of back and forth, and I think a lot of misinformation. Ronald Reagan says, the problem with our liberal friends is not that their ignorance, is a lot of the information they have isn't true.
Right.
And so there's a lot of that going on. There's a lot of misinformation about this issue going on, and a lot of, it's been going on for so long. The last vote we had here in Missouri on this was, and the only vote that I'm aware of in Missouri, is in 1978. And a lot of things have changed. Our union membership has gone down to 8%.
Right. In 1978, the state voted to keep the union laws the way they are.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so a lot of things have changed over time. I mean, the whole business models have changed. Our whole dynamic in manufacturing have changed in the United States and here in Missouri. We're no longer the number 2 auto manufacturer, for example, in the country. And so a lot of things have changed. The dynamics have changed. And if you look at the total picture, we do see that between 2003 and 2013, for example, that right-to-work states, their wages were about 15.1% higher growth rate than in forced union states, which was about 8.2% growth in that same period of time. So we see all of these different benefits that come about in doing that, where you have that choice, and that's
how does the wages grow with right to work?
Because you attract more jobs. So if you see where the job growths are, where you see where the opportunities are, they begin to grow. For example, down in the South, where you'll see most of the complaints are that right to work wages are lower.
Right.
If you take a look, most of those comparisons are done in the South. They ignore cost of living differences, for example. But if you look at the South, we know that the South has had a lot of problems for a lot of years. They've been underperforming. They've had a lot of people on welfare. But we see that boat rising, and the reason we see that boat rising is because of the job increases. We see a lot of those job increases with all the new auto manufacturing going in, a lot of other jobs going in down there, mainly because of right to work. And we see those boat rising. We see those wages then also rising because of those better jobs. We also saw that in Michigan when they went to right to work. They exceeded the national average in personal income growth after they went to right to work. So we know that right to work does not drive wages down.
So if wages are going up, why would you go to Michigan if wages are going up? Wouldn't you want to go to a state where wages aren't going up?
Go to
Yeah, so if you're a company and wages are going up in Michigan, well, that's bad for the companies, right? They want lower union. They want lower wages.
Yeah, you want to go, first off, you want to go where you can get your job done, right?
Right.
So you want to go where there's an educated workforce, which Missouri has.
Right.
I mean, Missouri, part of our problem here in Missouri, we're stuck in the doldrums. We haven't improved in the last 8 years at least. We're 47th in economic performance, but we have a very educated and trained workforce because we were number 2 in the auto industry. We have a lot of talent here. And so when we look at companies, we're looking for them to give them an opportunity to have an educated workforce. So they don't have to spend a lot of money bringing people up to speed and training. And so they're looking for that sort of thing. What's the tax environment? What's the labor environment? They look at all those sorts of pictures. And the reason that the wages go up and the reason they would come when wages are going up is because they can balance that out with having a trained workforce, for example.
There was a story in the Post-Dispatch over the weekend about a manufacturer. And it was a great story about how they're looking for somebody who can use computers and somebody who can use their hands. And so it's a new skill, if you will, right? You have to be able to use your hands and yet work with CNC routers and things like that. And they're begging. They're begging for people. And the biggest problem they have is they can't find quality workers for this company.
So one of the problems we have, and this is not even right to work or union issue. One of the problems we have in our educational system is we're driving everyone to a 4-year degree, which actually is a 5 or 6 year degree. Done. And we're not focusing enough on voc tech education. And that's what the problem is that we're having. And I think here in Missouri, we're trying to handle that because we have some very good voc tech educational deal. And that's the problem that a lot of our companies are experiencing is that we're not educating our workforce in the right levels.
Yeah.
We're trying to give everybody a bachelor's degree.
No, it's, you know what, and as somebody who has a bachelor's degree, who loves theater and arts and everything else, that's fine.
Right.
But you're right. There's nothing wrong with teaching somebody a skill.
Right.
And somehow we've lost that, right?
Yeah,
I mean, we don't want to teach them how to cut wood or be a pipe fitter or be a machinist for the 21st century.
Right. Look at the shop classes that used to be in all the schools and all the different things that used to be offered. They're no longer offered in high schools today. And we've lost touch with our manufacturing roots. And why do we think that we're losing our manufacturing touch? Is because we're not doing that in schools.
Not to mention how many high schools are teaching computer programming. I mean, legitimate computer programming, which are going to be the jobs of the 21st century.
Right. You know, I mean, I remember way back when, because I'm old, COBOL and all that other stuff, all the old languages. Trying to learn all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, DOS. You're thinking of DOS.
DOS too, yeah.
So the argument that the unions make that wages will decrease after right to work, you categorically deny.
Yeah, the data does not support it. The data from Bureau of Economic Analysis, Bureau from Labor Statistics, all the data does not support that has ever happened. And we know that in Indiana it didn't happen. We know in Michigan it didn't happen. 2 states that are very industrialized and Midwestern, like Missouri, for example. We also know we had a study done a couple of years ago. When I was budget chair, I had this group help me do the analysis of consensus revenue estimates, and we got it right. And so I had that group do a study of where would we be had we adopted right to work 30 years ago. Where would we be in Missouri? And that study concluded that we would have every man, woman, and child in Missouri would have almost $1,900 more in their pockets today had we adopted right to work 30 years ago.
Now, I saw that tweet or study or you sent out, and I was confused by that. You're saying $1,900 more a year, $1,900 total?
more a year per person.
So our salaries
capita.
would be $2,000 more a year if we would have installed Right to Work 30 years ago.
Roughly, that would have been the earning potential for every man, woman, and child in Missouri today.
Because you're saying we would have created more jobs.
Right. So more jobs, more opportunity, and that earning potential over those 30 years would have been that much. And they can find that on our website at unitedformissouri.org.
Yeah. Places that aren't Right to Work, New York, L.A., I don't know all of them. They seem to be doing pretty well with their job increases and wages and everything else.
Well, maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I mean, if you actually go on and find where people are leaving, those are the places people are leaving. New York is losing population, or losing workers. California is bleeding population out. They're not only bleeding people, they're bleeding wealth. And I'm sure you've interviewed people from How Many Walks.
Right.
And so they're bleeding. They're bleeding people into Texas. They're bleeding people into Florida. They're bleeding into people into places that are Right to Work, and bleeding people into places that have no income tax.
Yeah. Well, also because it costs $8 billion for a one-bedroom
Yeah, when
apartment.
you've got a 13% tax rate, yeah.
I'll live in St. Louis all day long. So when do you think we'll start to see the benefits of Right to Work if it's passed this session?
Well, I think that it'll pass this year. Hopefully, it'll be passed by the legislative spring break, which is about the middle of March. We'll start seeing implementation of it. Probably it'll take at least a year to really get into it. You've got to cultivate. People are watching this now. Companies are watching this now. We get national attention. We're being written about right now.
Right.
Kentucky did it a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
We are already being written up in national magazines as being the one to watch as the next state. So people are doing their planning, but corporations, companies do about a 2 to 3 year planning process, and so that's fitting into that right now.
So you're saying 5 to 10 years from now?
I think we'll see benefits. We'll start seeing before then, but 2 to 3 years, people are looking at right now.
One of the things people point to is Boeing, which is a huge manufacturing plant, fully unionized. Seem to have a very good relationship with their unions. They've seemed to make it work with the unions here.
Right, but they're also located in Right to Work states like South Carolina, North Carolina, where they also make it work.
Yeah. Carl Bearden, our guest. The website to find out more.
UnitedForMissouri.org.
You're always welcome here. Carl Bearden, former Speaker Pro Tem of the Senate, Executive Director of United for Missouri. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
9:20.